Today's edition of Train Smarter, Not Harder, we're going to look at base running and sprinting. So if I want to be fast, I want to use my butt. And to be able to use that awesome glute muscle to get that good explosion, whether it's a sprint start to get down the basketball court, it's a sprint start to get down the field, or I'm going base to base, I want to get as much of my butt involved as I can. And to do that, I need to be smart. It's just not about being strong. So if you look at what turns on that awesome butt muscle of power, it is the position of my pelvis on my femur. So if we look at how you are put together, my pelvis being able to rotate over that fixed femur is what puts that butt muscle on stretch. My femur being able to get to the inside of that pelvis is what puts that butt muscle on stretch. You need to think about your glute being a giant rubber band, and the harder I can pull that rubber band and the more stretch I can put on it, the bigger the explosion. This is true in sprinting. So if we look at trying to get off of a base or out of a quick start, I need to be able to have 1 foot forward. I need that knee to be inside of my hip. So my weight doesn't want to just be on the front half of my foot. My weight needs to be on the front half of my foot and my big toe. The minute I rock to my big toe, that's where I get that femur pull inside of my pelvis, which turns on more hip and more butt muscle for explosion. If we look at the back side of it, and that knee is forward and I'm on my big toe, the next big step is, where is my pelvis in space? I can't be tucked and rotated back here with a flat back and get much stretch out of that hip. If, when I'm gonna lead off and be in that sprint start position, I rotate my pelvis forward and stick my butt out, if my weight is on my big toe and my pelvis is rotated forward and my butt is stuck out, now that first step is going to be amazing. So that pelvic rotation is huge in being able to turn on some of that butt muscle. The other thing we look at in this position, if I'm going to have a sprint start, is where are my arms in space? So if my right leg is forward and my weight's on my big toe and I've rotated and stuck that butt out, now I need to go right elbow back. And what right elbow back does is it continues to turn on the rest of the muscles I need to explode. So if my right leg is forward and my right elbow is back, I've added just a little bit more rotational stretch to that glute on the bottom, and I have now turned on my right oblique, so my big old belly muscle. So now I'm using giant abdominal muscle, giant glute muscle to get me that explosive start so that I can get out of there quick. The 3 muscles or the 3 body parts mobility-wise that are going to limit your ability to get into this really great position are hamstring, calf, and upper back. So if I look at hamstring, every time my leg comes forward or my trunk comes forward, my hamstring controls my body's ability to do that. So if it is not long enough and strong enough to get me into this position, instead we will break down and we'll slump through that low back curve. The minute you slump through that low back curve, you have taken away your pelvic rotation that helps load that hip in this plane. So we don't want that. This rotation is super important for getting this to turn on and be able to explode. If we go further down and we look at calf, as I'm here and I want to drive that knee towards my target, it's the eccentric or the flexible load of that calf that lets that happen. If you have recurrent ankle sprains, recurrent plantar fasciitis, any kind of foot or ankle pain, or any kind of recurrent knee pain, this might be difficult for you, because what happens is if I have pain here and pain here often, my body will try to hold my foot still and I will have a stiffer foot and ankle as a matter of protection so that I can't move and makes the pain worse. So you can literally lose the mobility that lets you drive that knee forward in space and helps you rotate to be able to explode here. I don't want to lose that. So calf mobility for good foot and ankle, hamstring mobility for good trunk shift and knee load, and finally we look at upper back. So if I am in a constant state of slumped, that slumped posture feeds into my pelvis being in a posterior pelvic tilt. A posterior pelvic tilt is not athletic. If you have a tucked butt, slumpy posture here, your ability to fire this muscle becomes much, much more difficult. So in order to get myself into a pelvic rotation where I can get here and be able to drive to sprint, you have to be able to get here. So posture is important. I have to be able to open up here to drive into that pelvis here to get good glute fire. So being mobile through your upper back and through the front of your shoulders is really, really important. That could be potentially very difficult right now as we're on coronavirus seclusion and you're spending more and more and more time in electronics, work from home postures, school work from home, on my phone all the time. Your body adapts to whatever position you put in the most. So if I am constantly slumped here, I am going to end up stuck here and it is going to be extremely hard to sprint or take off. The other thing that I can do to increase my explosive ability is to, once I get here, as I'm going to take off, I'm going to drive that knee forward in space. So, as I drive that knee forward in space, if I'm coming off of first base or I'm coming off of second base, as I load onto my big toe, if I drive that knee forward in space, now I've created just that much more stretch through that hip and through that hamstring so that I can take off and explode. So when the pitcher starts their motion and I'm going to take off, I'm here, knee towards second base as a waterfall start, explode, I'm getting that much bigger bang out of the rubber band that is my glute. Be able to be strong for that first step. Doing it on one leg is far better. So I'm going to do a single leg position to start. I'm going to bend. I'm going to really focus on sticking my butt out and then driving that knee forward. Come back up, bend, stick that butt out, drive that knee forward and come back. So just getting used to and getting strong enough to be able to drive that knee forward and back in a loaded position will help you for first step sprint. And then the progression to that exercise is to be able to stand on one foot, and can you reach backwards as far as you can and come back up, and reach backwards as far as you can and come back up. This is not a standing single leg dip. This is a standing single leg posterior reach, because as I reach backwards with that opposite leg, that drives my pelvis forward and it drives me into that great big glute muscle so that I can be stronger, more functionally for that first step to get off the bag or that first step to sprint in any sport.